Hey guys, lovely to have you with me. It's myself, Jack, and his wonderful bottle of wine that his father-in-law has bottled up in a lovely vineyard in Spain. So I'm going to introduce this bottle of wine on every single one of our conversations, because Jack has just kindly brought it back from Spain, which is lovely. So Jack is the person that I have entrusted my properties to. He runs JBS, which is a superb letting agent, very high quality, not one of the mainstream letting agents, are you? So you get really super service, but what's important, it means that the tenants are well looked after. I thought it'd be nice for you guys if we ran a series of conversations really, so that you can get behind kind of Jack's experience, but also if you're learning about property or if you're thinking about working with a letting agent, these can be really important tips for you. This is the big one. How can a potential landlord or a new landlord or an experienced landlord avoid a nightmare letting agent? Because I have seen some that have run off with money.
Yeah. So we sort of like touched on this in another video in terms of governing bodies that they should all be registered with. So I mean that would be the first point to double check as you're doing your sort of checks in terms of who you'd like to go for.
Yes.
I guess like the biggest thing I've seen about a bad agent do from the side that then has to pick up all the pieces.
Oh yes, because of course you inherit them then.
Yeah,
don't you?
so we have inherited a few tricky situations.
Okay, tell us.
Like for example, I know one of them was it was a house out in Fish Ponds,
right? And
so the letting agent had let the property to. It was a rent-to-rent company.
Okay, I get letters every single week.
Yeah.
Multiple for rent-to-rent companies. We wouldn't touch them with a barge pole.
We don't let to rent.
No.
Only because I've seen it end badly. I mean, we've had one client that we've worked with on an inventory basis only.
Right.
And they run their rent-to-rent really well.
Okay, fair.
So if I was ever going to rent to someone that did do a rent-to-rent, it would be that client. I wouldn't trust anyone else, because I think there's a lot of people that they get into the rent-to-rent side and they don't really understand the full complexity of lettings.
Okay, so what was the disaster?
Well, the letting agent.
But what's the juice?
Yeah, I mean, the letting agent had let the property to this rent-to-rent company.
Yeah.
This rent-to-rent company then sublet all the rooms to four or five different people.
Yes.
But no one was going down for inspections. No one really knew the rent-to-rent company knew who was going in, but the letting agent who was managing it didn't know who the tenants were.
Right.
So they were sort of chopping and changing as they pleased because it was all sublet.
Yes.
So when we went down there after it was a big court eviction in the end.
Oh wow.
And there was radiators hanging off the wall. There was, all the carpets was all ruined or ripped.
Oh,
there was fire doors that had been ripped off. So then we had to spend the next 6 weeks to 2 months helping the landlord get the property back up to a rentable
and stopping
condition.
Crying.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we found a really lovely family to go in there. I think they've been with us now for 4 years.
Okay.
So it was a bit of a change. I think the landlord that's part of our job, understanding what the landlord is looking for.
Yes.
But we found a lovely family to take on that property.
So nightmare letting agent, subcontracted, nothing wrong with that technically, but then didn't keep on top of it.
Yeah, it was just the neglect of the property. So again, that from an inspection point of view, that's why at a bare minimum, letting agents should, I think, be doing it quarterly, so every 3 months. Yeah,
I've just read them through from your company.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I read them and emailed back to Dan.
Yeah, everyone's on the same page. It's all documented.
Yes.
There's no way it can then sort of spiral out of control that badly. I know some agents, they only inspect once a year as well.
Yeah.
Which again, I think 6 months is a huge amount of time for something to go wrong.
Yeah.
So it just means check that your agent's a bit more proactive in that sense. So it's more neglect that I've seen that agents do badly, rather than I've not heard of any agents in Bristol running off with any money.
Okay.
Touch wood, because I think they're all compliant. Hopefully they're all compliant.
Yes.
But it's more like the neglect that's then damaged.
So I would always come in and say, well, that's partly the landlord as well. So I use Arthur Online software. but it reminds me when we need the inspections. Now, I don't then email your team and say, oh, where's the inspection? But if the inspections weren't forthcoming within a period of time, I've got that task there. So when the inspections came through last week from Dan, I just ticked off the task. So it's like, great, that's automatic. So it's partly the client too.
But you're paying for the service of the management.
True.
So you're effectively outsourcing the responsibility of keeping on top of the compliance and like the inspections.
True.
So I know, some clients might not be as organised as you are. So it's kind of, it really is, it's from my perspective, it's always the agent's responsibility to keep on top of that.
Any other terrible situations you've come across?
Yeah, we've had tenants that are like thousands of pounds in arrears. And we've kind of come up with more of a kind of managing them out approach. So we would be meeting with them on a regular basis, face to face, not sort of hiding behind emails and phones. Having like a meeting, being like, where, like, can we come up with a plan for you to get yourself out of arrears? But again, it's the lack of sort of help coming from the agent that originally let it. So some agents, I know in the industry, some agents call it sort of let and forget about it. Which that is not really the case. You've let the property. From my belief is you then have a level of responsibility. For the rest, even if we're not managing it, I'm still, if a fine tenant landlord came back to us saying, oh, they've had this and this, I would then try and do everything in my power to then help them. Whereas I think some agents, they draw a line being like, it's a let only. That's it's your fault. It's your problem now. Move on to the next one.
I'm interested that I have the same attitude as you. I've only ever actually had 2 tenants who owe me money, and both of them have a CCJ, counter court judgment against them. And one of them then paid half the money, and one of them, they're still being pursued. But my view is the same. If a tenant is getting into serious arrears, and usually, I'm sure it's not always, but in my limited experiences, because they thought they'd try it, then the best thing to do is swap out tenants as fast as you can, because they're in a situation that isn't great for them, because they are either deciding to or are unable to pay. And so we've got the same kind of mentality on that. Don't go further into a situation where everybody's digging a hole for themselves. So basically it's ripped carpets, ripped radiators, thousands of pounds, but it's usually because of neglect.
That's the main thing.
So if you are in the Bristol area and you do want to go and speak to a really super letting agent, then can I suggest that you get in touch with Jack and his team? How would they do that?
So you can visit our website, which is jbsbristol.co.uk, or our office is up in BS7.
And if you want more property education, have a look at my website. It's called thegoodpropertycompany.co.uk. And I hope you enjoyed the whole series of videos that Jack and I are filming today. Well, sorry, Jack, I, and El Tío, the bottle of wine, because I really want to give you an insight into Jack's world, into what it's like to work with a letting agent, and also the professionalism that you're going to need to bring in if you're going to look at managing it yourself. But my vote these days, as I head off to Thailand, thanks, Jack. That's my vote. Sorry, Jack.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys, now you know how to get started in property. For step number 1, go to the next vid and we'll show you how sourcing discounted deals works. That's where you make your money.